First question, number one fight every couple has about money. How are you guys going to handle your finances?
We talked half about that. We talked more about credit and building our credit, not necessarily about if we're going to do a joint account or how we are going to do that stuff. I don't know how early you're supposed to do that.
Before you get proposed.
Really? So you have to figure out if you're going to get in combined. We did talk about finances and where we want to be, how much money we want to have saved, what our credit looks like so we can do certain things.
How you do it is the biggest fight.
We didn't talk about how, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
My wife Katie and I, we go through a weekly book. We call it a book. We write down all of our finances, and without a doubt, it's the number one thing we fight about.
Did you join your accounts right away when you got married?
When
or
we got
before
engaged.
That? When we got engaged, you joined your accounts.
Yeah, so that's when I joined my accounts.
That's interesting.
And that's when, before we got engaged, I had a conversation. This is what we're going to do. Proposed, and then we joined our accounts, and then we did those actions. So yes, I would have a serious conversation about how doing your finances goes, and I'm talking very, very specific on a daily basis, because what ends up happening is like, oh my God, you're spending so much money on the debit card. I didn't know you were going to buy this, and you just have these conversations, and it just boils up because you're combining your finances, you're combining your lives. So yes, I think you need to have a very specific conversation about what daily finances look like.
Where's my pen? 0 for 1.
Okay. What drives you the most mad about her that you want to change about her?
You want me to say that?
Yeah.
Honestly, there's not a lot of things that make me mad about her. We worked through a lot of things that used to make me upset or used to make her upset. I think over the past probably year and a half, we have gotten to a whole different place with communication. And that's what it was mostly. It's about communication. It was about mostly about making assumptions about assuming the other person knows exactly what you're thinking or how you're feeling about something. Because we have two very different mindsets, two very different perceptions, two very different thought process, and backgrounds. So we do not see the same things.
Sure.
See things the same way all the time. So we really got to, I feel like, a really good place at that aspect, and we used to fight about that stuff, and we haven't in a really long time.
And the reason I asked that question is I think it's really important to understand the thing that drives you the craziest about them, because it just begins to fester and it continues to keep coming out more and more in times of the relationship. And once you get married, there's no backing out of that. Like all of a sudden those things that you were just a little bit, that made you a little bit mad, all of a sudden make you a lot mad, and then you're just under this microscope of what marriage is.
Yeah. And then she leaves her clothes inside out when I try to fold them in the dryer, and they're every day they're inside out.
Yeah, it can get worse, man.
No.
Conversation about sex, man. Sex is an important part of marriage. We've talked about how you value sex a lot in your relationship. In marriage, I hate to break it to you, you're not having the sex all the time.
Yeah.
So what is the longest you've gone without having sex, and how do you keep intimacy alive with her?
Oh, the longest we've gone, probably a week would probably be the longest.
Oh, bro, man, you.
What? Why are you laughing so hard?
A week. Oh, I can't wait till you get married, man. No, you're gonna be. It's gonna be a lot longer.
You know what's interesting? They always say the sex drives in men and women are different at different points.
Sure.
And now that I'm gonna be 35 in a couple of weeks, and she's not even 30 yet, I can definitely tell that she, even over the past 2 years, has ramped up. And I don't know if it's stress or work. I feel like I've ramped down, so I had to make a conscious effort to make sure I am on the same page with it. And I definitely think it's really important because there's definitely times where I can know and I feel I'm like, oh, I've been physically distant, and that will cause a problem.
So how do you create intimacy without having sex? Like, there's more than intimacy. What is she like that you go, okay, this is a way for me to be intimate with it not being sexual?
Yeah, it's a little physical things. It's not necessarily.
You know what those are specifically?
The touches and hugs and where I sit down on the couch. If I sit far away from her, it's showing that I want to be with her and in the same space as her.
And then her biggest fear, and Shelby and I have had this conversation, is becoming a stepmom.
Yeah.
And so how will her role in Chance's life, your 9-year-old son, change when becoming a stepmom, and what will be her disciplinary role?
You know, it's funny that you bring that up, because I had just yesterday had a conversation with his mom about this, and Shelby and I have talked, and we recently talked about how she's very nervous about that. She doesn't want to overstep boundaries. She knows that we all have a really good relationship now, and as things change, we don't want to. She doesn't want to be the one that feel like she sabotaged that in any way, which isn't the case. That's not how we see things. But her disciplinary role will be as his mom. And that's exactly what his mom and I talked about, his biological mom, because she even brought up, she's like, I want Shelby to feel like she can discipline him the same way I would, the same way you would, because she is someone in his life that's that important, an authority figure and part of the family. And so no matter whether, he has only known her for 4 years or known her for his whole life, we are all on the same page. And that is the most important thing, is that we are all consistent on our messages and discipline.
Yeah, I think it's an important conversation, because if and when you do propose, she won't just become a fiance, she'll become a stepmom and a fiance, and
she'll try to work him. He will try to work her over. I know he will.
It's a big role change.
Yeah, he will. Yeah. So we did talk about that, and that's really interesting. And you're right, man. Those are really important things that we've touched on, but I never really put it all together as things that we are building our future around.